kidney pie. I know which one I like better, but that doesn't mean that I don't think I've ever actually tasted steak and kidney pie. I just ordered it. Something would have stopped me.
Can you go over the tools of moral persuasion that a realist can use?
Yeah, they're the same as the ones that the anti-realist can use. So at the general level, there are 4 sets. Right? One set has to do with the non-moral facts, clearing those up. One set has to do with logic. The third set has to do with analogy. And the fourth is looking for a deeper explanation or basis. Now, within those, we could talk about specifics. So for the non-moral facts, I mentioned 3 different overlapping categories, right? One is correcting a factual error. Another is pointing out a fact the person's never thought about. They don't have an erroneous belief about it, they just never thought about it. And a third is pointing out facts, in particular about how to accomplish a goal. So maybe I can't tell you which moral goals to have, right? I can't tell you whether to care about poor people or not. But when you hear people debating in Congress about welfare, nobody says, I don't give a shit about poor people. They all say they want to help poor people. Some people say, welfare creates a culture of dependency, so we must end it. And other people say, we can't let children starve, so we must continue it. They both seem to care about whether, about poor people. Well, what's the most effective way to help poor people? That's the issue here, right? It turns out, if people are honest, I doubt they are being honest. I think the people who say, end it because it creates a culture of dependency probably don't give a shit about poor people. It's their fault or something. So that's non-moral facts. Logic. The first tool, the first sub-tool, the first aspect of that is consistency. You can see why a realist cares about consistency. So if I say, I think everybody should be treated equally, but I think we should have separate water fountains for different races, right? Then my racism is just incompatible with my commitment to equality. And I ought to pick, right? And in fact, if that's the way I'm thinking, those principles can't both be correct. Just as it can't be true that, this figure, 2-dimensional figure is a circle, and it's also a square. It can be one or the other, but it can't be both. Or my dog has fleas, and the same dog doesn't have fleas. Inconsistent. Now, the anti-realist can't be worried about consistency for that reason, because they don't think any moral proposition is true. But they still might care about morality in terms of deciding what to do. And if your moral principles tell you to do conflicting things, right, then you can't do them both. And so from the standpoint of morality being practical in that sense, the inconsistency is a problem. Also, there might be kind of affective or emotive dissonance. That is just really weird to think that somebody is really for equality and is really against equality for women. Are you for equality or not? Now, it might be that you've got this view is consistent. Equality for everybody but women. It's abhorrent, but it's consistent. But at least you can push for consistency.
So would that be like more of a realist thing because it's morality? Or?
Both sides can use all of these tools. The realist is trying to figure out the moral truth. The anti-realist is trying to figure out what to value, what values to hold. So consistency was one of the versions of logic. Another version is sometimes somebody comes to a moral conclusion on the basis of an argument, a piece of reasoning. And that could be formally fallacious. It could have a formal logical fallacy, like affirming the consequent, right? Or denying the antecedent. Those are logically fallacious. And so if somebody's moral reasoning commits a fallacy, you can point that out. And typically people don't want to commit fallacies. Same thing with the informal fallacies, like argument from authority, or abuse, or the genetic fallacy, right? If somebody's moral argument is a version of one of those, then it can be pointed out that it's a version of one of those, and either the realist or the anti-realist will find that to be not so good. And finally, you can use logic to construct arguments from premises people accept. So, Don, you say you're for equality for women, and I'm a woman, so you should be for equality for me, right? Or you say you're for women's equality, but you're against, I don't know, equal pay for equal work. That's income. Which is it? So how do we do that? We say, number one, premise one, people should be treated equally. Premise two, paying people equally for the same work is treating them equally. Conclusion, people should be paid equally for equal work. Right? That's just constructing an argument out of two premises that I accepted. I accept that people should be treated equally. I accept that paying people the same amount for the same work is treating them equally. Then I ought to think that people should be paid the same amount for the same work. I've just constructed an argument out of two principles that I accept. See what I mean? So that corresponds to formal fallacies. This is just using formal logic correctly instead of incorrectly. The informal fallacies don't have good counterparts. Not exactly anyway.
Before we hop off logic, why can't the anti-realists be worried about consistency?
They can. They just can't think that two inconsistent moral statements are both that when two moral statements are inconsistent, one of them has got to be false, right? Because they think that all moral statements are false. So they have to be worried about consistency in attitude instead of consistency in belief. And there I'm saying, but some feelings just don't make sense together. If you're for equality, then, how can you be for inequality too, right? I mean, you might be conflicted. Or if you think that it's wrong to step on a crack, but it's also required that we step on a crack, what do you do when you come to a crack? Step on it or not, right? Or you think it's wrong to eat meat, and this is meat, but it's okay to eat it. That's inconsistent. Now, which principle are you going to follow? The it's wrong to eat meat principle or the it's okay to eat this principle? They're not consistent if this is meat. So, for that reason, even an anti-realist should care about consistency. The third tool is analogy, and likewise pointing out disanalogies. So, two ways you can work on analogy. You can produce an analogy, like Thompson did, or you can point to a disanalogy like I did when I was criticizing Thompson. And the fourth one is looking for a foundational moral principle, or a more foundational moral principle, a grounding for your moral principle. Right? So it would be very weird if there were, I gave two cases here. One was more fanciful than the other, right? The fanciful one was something like the step on a crack rule. It would be it wouldn't be weird. You'd have a false belief if you thought that stepping on a crack was going to break somebody's back. But if you did think it was going to break somebody's back, or if it really would break somebody's back, that would be a reason to be against it. But if there's no reason to be against it, why would you be against stepping on cracks? It seems like the sort of thing that either there's some reason to be against, or you shouldn't be against it. And the real life example of that is my teacher who said that he was raised to believe homosexuality was wrong, but then he looked and he couldn't find anything wrong with it. All the things people said were wrong with it didn't make sense to him. And so in the end he said, since there's nothing wrong with it, it's not wrong. Whereas in some cases, like suffering is bad, I don't think you can find a more general grounding for that, or a more foundational grounding. Suffering just is bad. Somebody says, what's so bad about it? I don't know what to say anymore, because it's bad. But in a lot of cases, I'm not willing to stop there. And your interlocutor won't be either. When you're talking moral talk, the person you're arguing with won't be either. That's looking for a grounding, a deeper grounding for at least some of our moral views. What else?
Sorry.
Yeah.
What did we just go over? Which
The last one, you mean?
Yeah. What
That was
tools?
number 4, which was looking for a deeper grounding, or I don't know what.
No, I mean, what were the tools?
So one was the one about the set of tools having to do with.
She means like in the in the question.
I mean, like, do you want the rational persuasion or the moral argument?
That's what they are. They both are tools of moral reasoning, rational persuasion, etc.
So when you say it twice, you mean something.
I don't know.
You
Can you
said,
read me word?
number tool
tools of rational persuasion.
Yep.
And explain the tools of moral persuasion I claim realists use.
Yep.
And then-
Rational persuasion and moral persuasion mean the same thing there, yeah.
Okay.
Rational persuasion in a moral argument. So instead of just, you could bully somebody, you know what I mean, or you could try to, I don't know, advertisers use all sorts of tricks to try to get us to agree with them that have nothing to do with rational persuasion. But these are tools of rational persuasion. It's actually reasoning with somebody about morality. Yeah.
So would a realist have other tools at their disposal? Would that just be that if there is a true fact, then they have the answer?
Well, they could say that there's a true fact, there's a truth here to get at, but how are they going to get you to believe it except by using these tools? All they can do is say, but I'm really right. But that's not an argument, that's just screaming. Table thumping, as I call it.
So they don't have any other?
I don't think there's anything extra that a realist has got at her disposal than an irrealist. I think, so I'm really interested in this question of meta-ethics about whether or not morality is real. I think it's an interesting question. But from a practical point of view, I don't think it matters. It never came up when we talked about abortion, right? We didn't have to think about that question about meta-ethics. We just started reasoning about it, even though some people in the class are presumably realists and some people are anti-realists about morality.
So if you, how would we just say, no, realist doesn't have much realism?
Yeah, there's not much else to say about it because it's hard to prove a negative, but I can't think of any extra tools, so that's all I'm really asking you to say there.
You ask us to explain in all cases though, and but you can't think of.
And I'm not sure what else to say, like I said, here's how you would explain it if you wanted to explain it. You'd say, merely insisting that your view is the correct view is not providing an argument or reason for it, right? So there's no advantage to being a realist when it comes to moral persuasion. Sure, they can say that there's a moral truth and insist that their view represents the moral truth. That's not giving you a reason to believe that it is. There might be ways to do it. Suppose you thought that, I'm now going beyond what I want on the test, but suppose you believe that most people know the moral truth. Then you could do a survey and find out what most people believe. And that would be some evidence that you got the moral truth. Most people are on your side. But why think that most people know the moral truth? Most people are idiots about all sorts of stuff. That's just the way the world is. There's some scene in Blazing Saddles where the minister is talking about these are the people who built this country up with their bare hands. Morons.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring you back
Okay.
again, but you went over the 4 tools.
Yep.
You went over the facts, logic surrounding those.
Analogy.
But what? Can you go
Analogy
over
slash disanalogy. Analogy is just finding a case where you've got a morally controversial case and you try to find a morally uncontroversial case to compare it to. So that's what Thompson is doing with the violinist example or the Henry Fonda example. She's saying, don't you agree that it would be okay to disconnect the violinist? Not everybody did, but those people who do, she's got a point. She's got a tool to argue with. Peter Singer does it when he gives us Convoy. Wouldn't it be wrong to leave him there? Right? And you might think, well, but sending money off to Oxfam is not the same thing as saving Convoy because they're far away. And then Peter would say, there's a moral distinction, so you're looking for a disanalogy. And Singer would say, why would that matter? We'd be off and running, but at least that's an analogy and a disanalogy.